some Zelda dubstep mixes, but they're getting ready to start. Actually, right now, we just hit 0.
10 seconds.
So it should pop up on Yunos' stream here shortly. Hopefully I'm not too far ahead of him here.
2, 1, go.
Alexa, go ahead and refresh the current data. I am. Both of them going for the wood sword. Obviously a good move. Looks like we're going to have double 2 first route here. I've got PierpontLempkin running about 3 seconds behind Dan H, but I should be able to keep up just fine.
Always comes in second, and I am number 3.
Looks like we got Bresticle in the chat instead of on the comms.
The helper is trying to jump over. She's the fastest. He can't quite make it. Oh, I love The Simpsons.
Both of them making fantastic time over to level 2. Looks like Dan H is just a little bit behind, but not too far. Pierpont taking a tap on the way up, going to go in a half heart down, loses a little bit of time on it as well. Both players making quick work of the first room, and they're going to head on up to the second. Let's see what they do here in the room of Gorillas. Looks like Dan H is going to walk out with 8 bombs, where Pierpont gets 0. It's very unfortunate for him. Thanks to the bombs, Dan H is making pretty quick work of the Moldorms here, while Pierpont has to do the whole sword action. Looks like they're in the same room about exactly the same time, so far we are neck and neck. Pierpont ahead on the rupee count just a little bit, but shouldn't have too much of an issue. Picks up another 5er and leaves one on the ground as well. Pierpont gets some bombs finally and decides to bomb down the remaining Gorillas. Dan H is already in Dodongo's room with full bombs. Drops a couple of down, no troll here, and down goes Dodongo. Let's see what happens for Pierpont. Same thing, and he's heading on his way towards the Triforce. 225, and Dan H picks up his first board. We got Pierpont buffering just a little bit, unfortunately. We'll see if we can get that fixed.
Only 8 rupees, though. That's a little unusual for me.
No, it's on my multi-twitch. Dan H going to pick out the Armos 30 secret here. Still having some issues with Pierpont, so not quite sure what's going on there, but hopefully he'll come back here soon. No, Bresticle, I am the only one casting this game because for whatever reason you're not in the channel with me. Looks like Dan H is going to be making his way on up towards the white sword. Looks like we're going to have the Bresticle red candle route going on here. I'm sure Pierpont is doing the same thing, but I can't quite see.
Almost walked right into that cat.
Dan H was a solid time at 3:53 picking up the white sword. Has no problem sliding right past the Lionel there. Gonna make his way towards level 1 now. Dan making his way across the bridge towards level 1. Gonna make it in there at about 4:38. Great time to get there. ACLM, I believe so. I honestly cannot see Pierpont. I honestly have no picture from him. I haven't for about the last 3 minutes, but that would be my assumption. Generally, they both do red candle to first route. That is correct. That would be no blue rain. I'm going to go ahead and refresh my multi-twitch here, see if I can't get Pierpont to pop back up, because unfortunately I have not had his picture here for a little bit. Looks like Dan H picks up his bow. Good for him, making some pretty good time. Finally got my picture back. Looks like Dan H is actually just slightly ahead of Pierpont here. Managed to get a negative 2.7 on his level 2 split, whereas Pierpont was up 6.3, so a little bit behind his PB there. Dan H making quick work of Aquamanus, and it's going to be knocking out a 6:29 level 1, ahead of his PB by 8.5 seconds, making some quick time here. Meanwhile, Pierpont's making his way in towards the Triforce as well, and he's going to gain some time, and he is down 12.1 over his PB, making some great time for both racers. This is a very close race indeed. Both players picking up the 30 secret north of start and going to make your screen scrolls on over to level 3. Dan H going to enter at 7:33. Pretty good time. Pierpont just behind him at about 7:37. Looks like we finally have got Breasticle on the channel after some technical difficulties.
Who the hell is Breasticle?
That guy named BT. Welcome, sir.
Alright, calibrate me. Where we at? What do you see?
We're currently entering, it looks like, the key north of the raft room for both players. There's about 4 seconds of difference between them right at the moment.
I'll be right there.
Dan H making some pretty quick work of the room. Meanwhile, Pierpont getting a double bomb drop in his room. Ends up with 8 bombs. Both players with 8 bombs. Again, just about 5 or 6 seconds separating these players. This has turned out to be one of the best races we have had so far. I love how BT gets all the hype and no love for Adaginos.
All the hype, none the love. Hey, I just got off work. Oh,
well,
wow.
You're just in time, almost.
This is really neck and neck. So we got Dan H is gonna bomb into Manhandle first. Pierpont's gonna be right behind, about 8 seconds behind. It looks like.
Yeah, they're really very close. Dan H or Pierpont had a couple of little mishaps. Unfortunately, did not get bomb drops in level 2, so fell behind just a little bit because of that. But Dan H struggled a little bit with Manhandle here.
Bomb number 4, bomb number 5, and we get Manhandle and a 4-pack. And Pierpont is caught up in that same notion. So we got 2 seconds apart.
Sorts it down. Yeah, very nice.
Dan H all done with rupees just about. Looks like none of these players getting blue rings based on these 35 minute PBs. So
yeah,
just a few more rupees to collect, and then they're ready to buy their bait and arrows for 140.
Yeah, both players ahead of their PBs right now. Dan H crushing that level 3. Looks like he might have had some issues with it last time, but even with the not-so-good Manhandle is still up 17.8 over his personal best. Meanwhile, Pierpont cruising along at 5.5 under, so he's got a really strong latter half, it looks like.
Getting into level 4 just after 10 minutes is really good pace. Look at all these green splits we're getting out of Dan. We're at a minus 17.8 from his PB.
Gets the clip on the second try. Man, this is really, really close. I got Pierpont just about 3 seconds behind picture-wise, so they are pretty much almost identically in the same room.
Pierpont's actually taking the time to clear out these Zol and fill up his rupees, knowing that he's just a few rupees behind. Dan doesn't even have to touch the secret room full of rupees, just has to pick up one more, and he's done there.
Looks like he gets his 10 count and gets his bomb pack as well, so he's setting pretty. Got 139 rupees and 7 bombs. Pierpont doing well too, so I mean we're sitting good. He gets his bombs as well. Looks like he's going to go ahead and sort down the rest of these.
And a delicious but quick breakfast. You don't want to spend too much time on the most important meal of the day.
Yeah, very quick room indeed. Pierpont making pretty quick work as well. Gets another 5er, so he's going to have some extra rupees laying around as well after he gets done. Struggling a little bit more than Dan H, but does manage to get through it.
Dan got tangled up in some keys trying to leave the ladder room. He's down about half health. Shouldn't be too much of a problem for Gleok with a white sword, but we'll see what happens trying to clip across the tea room here. Oh, gets bopped again. Bopped again.
Yeah, 2.5 hearts, not where you want to be going into Gleok with the green tunic. Even with the white sword, that is still a tough fight with just 2.5 hearts.
Yep, I'm fully aware of his rupee count, just cuts through the rupees, bombs the hole, doesn't waste any time there.
Timely death here could really cause some issues. We got a neck-and-neck race so far, but a death here will cost you a couple of minutes. A heart, though, yes.
Yeah, got the heart drop. Let's see what Pierpont can get from these Vire. So far, -1 bomb. And Gleok is
doing well so far.
Good thing he got that heart drop. He was going to be a little scared there. Gets
yeah,
extra rupee.
Hearts. Yeah.
And now the Gleok fight for Pierpont.
I'm going to go ahead and refresh here. I think Breskel is just slightly ahead of me.
He who refreshes last gets most ahead. Another rupee drop from Gleok. So Pierpont is cleaning up right now, getting his Triforce at 1247. We are still within just any sort of maneuvering behind each other.
Absolutely.
He's hung up on this clip across the river here, out of level 4 towards level 5 in the around the world wrap. Pierpont's struggling with it too, so no real change in position here. Could actually procure some meat and arrows from the shops here. This will allow him to warp to level 3 after getting the recorder in 5.
Yeah, Dan H losing a little bit of his 22-second ahead over his PB there, but I don't think he'll have to worry too much. He seems to be on fire this run so far.
Somebody was practicing.
Yeah, Pierpont, one of our very consistent racers on Saturday nights, usually hits right around 35 to 36 every single race, so we can expect that out of him, but Dan H putting the pressure on right now.
Ooh, Dan really struggling to keep Beam Sword here, but manages to dance with the Octoroks in the pale light of the moon. And we're caught up to each other kind of again, so...
Yeah, just about one screen transition apart. Looks like we're going to have Dan stop for some bombs and does get them. Pierpont does the same, gets it as well. So
Pierpont does not mess around in the marketplace, I tell you what.
Yeah, absolutely.
French man who knows how to shop. Keep that in mind, ladies.
Oui, oui.
Alright.
Both players getting ready to take the Hylian wormhole. Let's see how it goes.
Pierpont eventually snags it. Ooh, I believe Dan was on the right pixel, but didn't have any faith. Lines up with the shield in the opposite position. Gets it. Now, both struggling with the
ladder clip, yeah.
Oh, Dan gets it first.
Dan gets it first, yeah.
Alright, you don't want to mess
gets it right after. Man.
You don't want to mess around with these Octoroks. You want to just get out of here. Pierpont wants to stop to mess around. One player missing half a heart, the other missing a full heart. Ignoring those bombs, they're completely unnecessary.
Yeah, down just a heart's not a bad place going into 5. As long as you're not down 4 or 5, you're be all right, I think.
All right. Super exciting, but not a lot of drama out here on the battlefield. We just have wrestling with clips. We have really good inventories. Pierpont up a bomb, which is completely unnecessary if you pick up the pack on that Gibdo on your way through level 5.
Correct, yeah, I mean, we're just literally neck and neck. I've never seen anything quite like this. Pierpont stopping to sort a little bit instead of walking on through. He's going to put him behind just a little bit. Dan taking a shot or two from the Tektites, but looks like he's going to get over there to level 5 as soon as he can make this Clip. Struggling a little bit again. Clips have kind of been the bane of these players so far this run.
Well, yeah, unless you've done them about 1,000,000 times, they're pretty tricky. Especially as adrenaline starts to flow you. Not holding the D-pad as long as you're used to, and it's hard to line up those shots, but players are tied on health. And they're entering 5 about the same time. Pierpont's just a second or two behind.
Yeah, I mean, quite literally a screen transition away from each other. This is quite the race we've got going on here. One death is surely going to mean the end of the race for that player, but we'll see how things go here.
Well, they're playing so much like each other, I would assume if one player dies, the other would be shortly behind. That's, we're going to get a really good sensation of who's going to pull ahead from this blue Dark Nut room, so this is the most pivotal part of anyone's run, and we'll just see who comes out of here alive and first.
Looks like Pierpont's got the bomb advantage by 1. Starts taking some stabs at him while Dan is waiting patiently.
Did 0 damage on that Pierpont bomb.
Does get a fairy drop, however, to bring back some health, so that'll help a little bit. Dan throwing out some stabs, gets a bomb, and gets 2 with it. Down to 3.
Yeah, we both have 3. Pierpont with 2 Dark Nuts remaining. Tied on health again.
Tied on health, but Pierpont's up 2 bombs right now. Looks like Dan's going to get done first, with Pierpont right behind. I mean, these guys are literally at the same pixel almost.
I'm pretty sure Dan H is just hosting Pierpont's stream, and then he's just going to done whenever he feels like it, because they're just neck and neck here. But, yeah, so looking at Dan H's PB, definitely gotta say Dan H is favored to win here, because the level of improvement is just so intense.
Yeah, it looks like he struggles a little bit between level 5 and level 7. That's about the difference in time between Pierpont and Dan H here. So we'll see how these next 2 levels go and see where things are lying at here. Looks like with that pit stop that Dan took, he fell just a little bit behind Pierpont here. Takes the lead by about 1 screen. Dan taking a shot in the little Dark Nut room there, unfortunately. Going to be down an extra heart. It cost him a little bit on the refill, which might just spread the lead just a little bit more. Pierpont with full bombs, Dan H with 6, so we'll see if Dan decides. No, he does use a bomb, so he's going to be short a few bombs going into level 7, so we'll have to see him maybe work on getting a few of those. Pierpont passing up the heart while Dan picks it on up. Looks like they're going to pick up the Triforce just about 3 seconds apart, but you're going to have a little bit of a second difference because Dan is going to have to refill. However, he does knock another 1.2 seconds off of his PB, so he is just cruising right along. Meanwhile, Pierpont loses 37.7, so 32 seconds lost in that level. So it looks like he had a much better blue Dark Nut room the last time that he did this run. So looks like the latter half of this race here is going to be pretty close. Dan H stopping to pick up some bombs, does get the drop, so now he's sitting at 8. So both players got a full bomb inventory. Pierpont moves ahead by a few more seconds, however. Pierpont taking a couple of snipes to the back. Looks like Dan H has the same thing happen just once, however. So they're both in the same room. Both have money for arrow strats, but neither choose to switch over since they're both using the white sword. Pierpont on through. Is going to give the meat tribute to the Dig Doggers, and no wall masters for him tonight. Meanwhile, Dan not taking the time to give the proper respect. I also feel like I'm kind of talking to myself here. Did I lose my co-caster? Pierpont moving into the red candle room. Alright, so I'm not just talking to myself. I wondered if I lost audio there for a second. Maybe he took a break for a second. But Pierpont going to pick up his red candle at 21:07. Meanwhile, we got Dan H trying to clip into the same place. I mean, these guys are literally just about 10 seconds apart. This is by far the closest race I have seen so far this tournament, and is quite interesting to watch indeed. Dan getting a bomb drop, and looks like Pierpont as well, so they're both sitting pretty on bombs, which is always nice when you're going to get ready to head over to level 6, not having to worry about that one bomb to avoid the Gleeok room. Pierpont making his way into the Wallmaster room. Meanwhile, just behind is Dan H. Gonna mess with some of these funky spawns due to the red candle pickup, but it looks like Pierpont is going to make pretty quick work of it and is going to head on out. Meanwhile, we've got arrow strats that are going to come in from Dan H. Pretty good idea considering the way that the bubbles are playing with him. Looks like he'll have no trouble either, and he's going to make his way into the staircase. Shout out to Fred Coughlin. If you haven't picked up a randomizer yet, you absolutely need to do so. Aquaman is made of quick work by Pierpont, and meanwhile we've got Dan H entering the same room. Looks like 2234 is going to be the split there on the Triforce for Pierpont, and golds it at that, knocking 7.7 off, going to be plus 30 on his PB. Meanwhile, we get a gold 7 from Dan H at the same time, knocking off an additional 2.9 seconds. We have got a very close race here, folks. Thank you, Joe, for the link. Pierpont picking up his magic sword at 23:21. Meanwhile, Dan H literally on the same exact screen. We'll see how 6 treats these boys. There's a couple of rooms on there that can cost them some seconds, and that may switch the lead back to Dan H here. Both of them making it to level 6 with their beam sword. Always a nice place to be. Meanwhile, Pierpont getting a double bomb drop, but taking an orange Wizrobe beam at the same time, losing 4 hearts. Not how you want to start off the level. Dan H also getting his bomb drop, but keeps his beam sword. Always want to have that for this Keese room. It looks like Pierpont struggling just a little bit with the Keese. It only takes 1/2 a heart to hit, though, and moves on through. Pierpont in the magical breakfast room. Hasn't taken any hits so far. Dan H enters the room at pretty much the exact same time. This room is going to be kind of an equalizer, it looks like, on the time. Looks like Dan H is going to make a few seconds up as he takes out all but the last 2 likes, while Pierpont is struggling a little bit to get the last blue Wizrobe. In fact, Dan H does indeed take a small lead. Onto the room of no drops. Meanwhile, not quite true, as Pierpont picks up a bomb drop, and a heart for Dan H. So Pierpont sitting at 8 bombs, Dan H at 7. So both are sitting pretty. Dan H deciding to use some bombs on these blue wizrobes as he enters the room. Takes a beam for his trouble, but manages to clear out all of the wizrobes and has got only 2 likes left. Meanwhile, Pierpont struggling and gets the last 2 blue wizrobes. Heading into the staircase as Dan H. He takes a few more seconds of a lead here. But both racers literally neck and neck still. This is quite the race we have. Could be neck and neck by about 10 seconds in level 6. No bomb drop on the way out for Dan H, so sitting only at 5 bombs, quite unfortunate. Meanwhile, Pierpont has got a full 8 in his arsenal. 1 shot for Goma takes down for Dan, and he's going to pick up his board. Looks like he's going to be even farther ahead here. See what happens when he splits. 32 down, so he gains another 6 seconds. Meanwhile, Pierpont losing 14, so we are seeing Dan just crush his PB right now. We still got 2 horrible levels of level 8 and level 9 left. But we will see what goes on here. 9, obviously, the great equalizer, and anything can happen, as we've seen in our previous races. Dan H getting his bomb drop on the way to level 8. That will cost him a few seconds, but bring him back up to par. He actually falls behind Pierpont just a little bit from that maneuver, but both are going to enter level 8 at pretty much the identical time. So, very cool. Looks like Pierpont making much faster work of this first blue Dark Nut room. Hasn't taken a hit yet. Gets through it without a single hit. Meanwhile, Dan H struggling just a little bit, but does get some heart and fairy drops in the meantime to bring him back up. But he's going to fall behind a few seconds here trying to fight through these guys. Dan H still in the first room. Meanwhile, while Pierpont is in the second, does get a fairy and a heart drop to bring him close to full. Pierpont also getting a fairy drop in the second room, while he struggles just a little bit more with this than he did with the first. Pierpont through with full life out of the second Dark Nut room. Meanwhile, Dan H taking a few hits, has 2 left. We'll see how much farther Pierpont can get ahead, with Dan H struggling just a little bit to get through these blue Dark Nuts. Dan H making some quick maneuvers through the staircase room. Meanwhile, Pierpont is on Gliok. Takes a couple of hits for his trouble so far. Make that 3, 3.5, 4, 5. Gets it on the after taking 5.5 hearts of damage. That'll cost him a little bit on the refill. Switching over to the recorder as he picks up the Triforce just about now. Meanwhile, Dan H has managed to make up some time with that. Has a little bit smaller of a refill, and it looks like they're going to be just about equal once again. Seven bombs for PierpontLempkin, 6 bombs for Dan H. Both have gotten up to transverse level 9. However, obviously you would like more bombs for reverse C. Pierpont going to take a detour for a potion. I believe we'll see Dan H do the same. I'm not sure what Dan's farming for there, but loses a few extra seconds killing the orange Octoroks. We do have both going for potion strats, however. Looks like we're building up a bomb count, so we're going to have Dan H with 8 bombs. Costs him a little bit of time to build the count, but however, we'll have the extra bombs, so he'll be sitting a little bit better for the reverse C room if Pierpont does not get a lucky drop. Pierpont a couple of screens ahead now, thanks to the time it took for Dan to build up a count. We'll see if both players can make it into level 9 with the beam sword. Struggling still with some of these clips. Fortunately, that's the last one of the match, but Looking at the timers, it looks like we lost 19 seconds for Dan H and 15 seconds for Pierpont. So quite unfortunate, very unforgiving level 8. Pierpont enters level 9. Dan H right behind his heels, getting ready to bomb into level 9. Both look like they managed to make it in with Beam Sword, so that's a good place to be. Pierpont clearing out the breakfast room in level 9, picking up his last key that he needs. Looks like we get a fairy drop, double fairy drop for Dan H. Right behind him, getting ready to clip into the staircase that Pierpont has just left. We will see how Patra 1 goes for these boys. It can be very, I don't know, jerkish, I guess is the best word to use. Pierpont taking just one hit through the Patra room. Not too bad. We've got Dan H going in right now. It looks like he's going to take one, two, just 2 hits. Luckily does not get the third, though it was very close. Pierpont taking a body shot from a blue Wizrobe, but does manage to get through the room. Dan H making fairly quick work of them as well. He does get a bomb drop as well, so he's sitting on full bombs. Meanwhile, Pierpont has just 4, so that is going to make quite the difference, making it into the reverse C room on, time-wise, unless something like a clock or something happens. But that will be a big help for Dan H. Pierpont going to go for the skip, gets it without getting hit. We've got Dan H entering the same exact room. Let's see how this clip goes for him. Gets it on the first try, no damage. Pierpont's going to have 1 extra bomb for this room. Takes a body shot, bombs the orange one, gets a bomb drop, but takes 2 beams to the back from the blues in the process. This is dangerous. He's still got 1 orange Wizrobe up, and he got only 4 hearts. Gonna take another beam, and it looks like he's gonna have to use a potion. Very unfortunate, gonna lose a lot of time off of that. Meanwhile, Dan H has finished off the room and is gonna make his way towards the silver arrows. Dan H with a 32-43 silver arrows. That is fantastic. Meanwhile, we've got Pierpont heading on down the stairs. Looks like he's going to get about a 32-56 on his silver arrows. So 13 seconds apart for these players. Quite the difference that reverse C room made. Dan H struggling, does not get the reverse clip. Decides to go ahead and clear out the room. But makes it into the staircase with no additional damage. Meanwhile, Pierpont is going to go ahead, get the reverse clip, and gain a little bit of time back on Dan H. Pierpont nailing the
God, that was a weird silence.
The skip on Patrick takes only 1 hit. Looks like we only had 0 damage there from Dan, so he does well on the skip as well. Literally still 1 room apart for these players. This is literally anybody's game. If at any point Dan has the potion, Pierpont takes the lead again. Goes into the trap room with the Wizrobes here, takes a couple of hits, takes a beam down to 4 hearts, takes another beam down to 2 hearts. Looks like Dan is going to have to go ahead and potion here. Pierpont clears out the room and is making his way towards Patra 3. This is literally going to be 10 to 15 seconds towards the end here, folks. So anything can happen. A bad Ganon can throw it off for somebody. Let's see what happens. Pierpont making the clip into the final Patra, down 5 hearts. We've got Dan H making it into the room right before the staircase. Gets through no damage, has Beam Sword. Who knows how much that'll help. Makes a big difference on that Patra. Pierpont making quick work of it. Meanwhile, Dan H is making his way into the room. Patra down. Pierpont getting ready to go into Ganon right now. Let's see if he gets the stun lock.
Ooh, a not a favorable
Meanwhile, Dan taking 3-4 hits from Patra. Very unfortunate. Makes his way into the room right now. Stops for a heart. Looks like we've got 1 hit for Pierpont. Boy, this is close. If If Dan can get a perfect Ganon, this might be it. Does not. Pierpont gets Ganon down. This is going to be seconds apart. This is almost heartbreaking for Dan. As he gets the stun lock, this is going to be 3 or 4 seconds apart. Oh, how heartbreaking can you get?
And at 35-15 versus like a 35-18.
And we get a tie. It is 35-23 for both players. There is a tie. Unbelievable. We have a rematch.
I called it. Fresticle called
Get
it.
out of here.
Everyone can suck a big bag of dicks.
Oh my goodness. It's a dead tie. I can't believe it.
How the hell is it even possible to have a tie in this game?
Why does 8gen have
We
me
have
muted?
emotion of the Pierpont. This is the first time any of us have ever seen a smile come out of Pierpont. I'm sure he can't believe it. Dan H PBing by 13 seconds to go to a 35-23. Absolutely unbelievable. Looks like both players were watching each other. Didn't know how much the stream delay was, but absolutely unbelievable.